Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you have a great and wonderful day. Well, it seems like the corruption, the communism is going to be in full force. Since apparently the FBI, the communism, the socialists, the fascist group of people of government is really coming near Trump supporters. Yes. So instead of trying to win the election the fair way, they're going to do it by putting pressure on Trump supporters. Well, they're really trying to test our mettle, aren't they? What they're doing here is that we have exclusive Donald Trump followers targeted by FBI as 2024 election nears. We have this. The federal government believes that the threat of violence and major civil disturbances around the 2024 U.S. presidential election is so great that it has quietly created a new category of extremists that seeks to track and counter Donald Trump's army of MAGA followers. The challenge for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the primary federal agency charged with law enforcement, is to pursue and prevent what it calls domestic terrorism without direct reference to political parties or affiliations. Even though the vast majority of his current anti-government investigations are Trump supporters, according to classified data obtained by the Newsweek. The FBI is in an almost impossible position, says the current FBI official, who requested anonymity to discuss highly sensitive internal matters. The official said that the FBI's attempt on stopping domestic terrorism and any repeat of the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. But the Bureau must also preserve the constitutional right of all Americans to campaign, speak freely, and protect the government. By focusing on former President Trump and his MAGA Make America Great Again supporters, the official said, the Bureau runs the risk of provoking the very anti-government activists that the terrorism agencies hope to counter. Especially at a time when the White House is facing congressional Republican opposition, claiming that the Biden administration has weaponized the Bureau against the right wing, has to tread very carefully, says the official. To over a dozen current or former government officials who specialize in terrorism and the 3-month investigation to understand the current domestic security landscape and to evaluate what President Joe Biden's administration is doing about what it calls domestic terrorism, most requested anonymity because they were not authorized to talk publicly, were elected to stray in partisan politics, or feared the repercussions of speaking frankly. Secret FBI and Department of Homeland Security data that track incidents, threats, investigations, and cases to try to build a better picture. While experts agree that the current partisan environment is charged and uniquely dangerous, with a threat not only of violence but in most extreme scenarios, possibly civil war. Many also question whether terrorism is the most effective way to describe the problem, or that the methods of counterterrorism developed over the past decade in response to Al-Qaeda and other Islamist groups constitute the most fruitful way to craft domestic solutions. The current political environment is not that the FBI is necessarily responsible, nor should it be, says Brian Michael Jenkins, one of the world's leading terrorism experts and senior advisor to the president of the RAND Corporation. The FBI said the threat posed by domestic violent extremists is persistent, evolving, and deadly. The FBI's goal is to detect and to stop terrorist attacks, and our focus is on potential criminal violations, violence, and threats of violence. Anti-government or anti-authority violent extremism is one category of domestic terrorism, as well as one of the FBI's top threat priorities. The FBI further said, we are committed to protecting the safety and constitutional rights of all Americans and will never open an investigation based solely on First Amendment or protected activity, including a person's political beliefs or affiliations. The White House declined to comment. The Trump campaign was given an opportunity to comment but did not do so. Well, I know one thing's for sure. What they're saying here is a lie. Because we've seen the FBI from the Twitter files or X files, pretty much saying that they go completely against that. They have violated many of Americans' First Amendment rights. They have violated many of January 6ers' First Amendment rights by great margins, did horrible things to them, and they don't keep them in very healthy or good, stable conditions at all when they're being holed up in jail. So the FBI is obviously lying here. This is not a thing that the FBI is doing at all. In fact, they're acting in a very communist regime type style. And it's hilarious because I keep on telling this person that said they're going to be coming after your rights. Well, guess what? That's exactly what they're doing. They're saying they're not going to tackle after your political speech, but they have been aiming pretty much everywhere so far for your political stance. And by the way, This doesn't mean that, that the MAGA Republicans are the ones, right? They also are going after any human possible that is anti-establishment, which is pretty much everyone. I think what the biggest thing that we have to talk about here is that anti-government or anti-authority violent extremism is one category of domestic terrorism. So that means anybody that's anti-government or anti-authority is an issue. It's an extremism, right? Because a lot of people that just do not want the government in their lives at all is an extremist and is a person that needs to be put into a category. That's fantastic. So I guess now, guys, since you got the people that watch my channel and the people that are, more like-minded individuals, I think that that you guys are now extremists now. Because even if you do not like Trump, but you hate the government or anti-government, yes, you're an extremist now. Welcome to the world that the FBI paints you. More of the reason why the FBI needs to be completely demolished and destroyed from the ground up. In fact, it shouldn't even be an organization anymore. It should be destroyed immediately, the same thing with the DOJ. What the FBI data shows. From the president down, the Biden administration has presented Trump and MAGA as an existential threat to American democracy and talked up the risk of domestic terrorism and violence associated with the 2024 election campaign. Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. President Biden tweeted last September, the first time that he explicitly singled out the former president. MAGA Republicans aim to question not only the legitimacy of the past elections, but elections being held now and the future, Biden said. Well, Biden, we all know you're a dictator and a communist, so I am not surprised that you would say this. Of course, we have lunatics that will go out and defend this guy and say that he's great and all because they have IQ and room temperature of 20, but obviously, these people are a lost cause. I think Biden has been a huge detrimental to our country, and he is a dictator full and foremost. Biden's Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall said, the use of violence to pursue political ends is a profound threat to our public safety and national security. It is a threat to our national identity, our values, our norms, our rule of law, our democracy. For Attorney General Merrick Garland, attacks by domestic terrorists are attacks on all of us collectively, aimed at rending the fabric of our democratic society and driving us apart. Though the FBI data shows a dip in the number of investigations since the slew of 76 cases ended, FBI Director Christopher Wray still says that the breach of the Capitol building was not an isolated event, and the threat is not going away anytime soon. In a joint report to Congress this June, the Bureau and the Department of Homeland Security say that threats from DVEs, domestic violent extremists, have increased in the last 2 years, and any further increases in threats likely will correspond to potential flashpoints such as high-profile elections and campaigns or a contentious current events. What do they mean by domestic violent extremists? And what do you mean it increased in the last 2 years? The last thing I've seen has been mostly the far left that have been going completely batshit insane. This is not really a thing that to be a fight against. It's true. If you're talking about the actual protests that we don't want illegal immigrants in our country, and you're calling that domestic violent extremists, I wonder who the real villain is here. Because the majority of Americans do not want these people. Of course, you're going to cater to the far left and the extreme idiots that are, and we're going to be going over more of the far left as well. Not today, obviously, because there's too many of these people getting their just desserts, but the fact of the matter is that the far left is honestly really just not doing too well on themselves. They're being victims of their own policies that they're creating. Socio-political developments such as narratives of fraud in the recent general election, the emboldenment impact of the violent breach of the U.S. Capitol, conditions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and conspiracy theories promoting violence will almost certainly spur some domestic terrorists to try and engage in violence. The threats listed in that paragraph are clearly associated with America's right, and in particular with Trump's MAGA supporters. Right after January 6th, the FBI co-authored a restrict report, Domestic Violent Extremists Emboldened in Aftermath of the Capitol Breach, Elevated Domestic Terrorism Threat of Violence Likely Amid Political Transitions and Beyond, in which it shifted the definition of gave anti-government, anti-authority violent extremism. From furtherance of ideological agendas to furtherance of political and social agendas, for the first time, such groups could be so labeled because of their politics. It was a total subtle change, little noticed, but a gigantic departure for the Bureau. Trump and his army of supporters were acknowledged as a distinct category of domestic violent extremists. even as the FBI was saying publicly that the political views were never part of its criteria to investigate or prevent domestic terrorism. Well, we all knew that the FBI was lying. This is not a surprise. And, of course, the Twitter files, aka X-Files, have exposed them as being liars and violating the First Amendment and going after people politically. So, they have been lying. They've been lying this entire time. It's just a matter of fact that they're just being more upfront and open about it now. Where the FBI sees threats is also playing from the way it categorizes them. A system which on the surface is designed to appear non-partisan. They shifted subtly days after the event of January 6th when it comes to the borough calls a gave. So, yeah. But the FBI went further in October 2022 when it created a new subcategory called a gave of those who were a threat but do not fit into anti-anarchist militia or sovereign citizens groups. Introduced without any announcement and reported here for the first time, the new classification is officially defined as domestic violent extremists who cite anti-government or anti-authoritarian motivations for violence or criminal activity are not otherwise defined as such as individuals motivated by a desire to commit violence against those who with a real or perceived association with a specific political party or faction of a specific political party. There is a lot more here, but the threat of misguided Americans. We're going to do some of the bigger ones here because it's going to be too long of a video if I do all of this. It seems to me that the very word terrorism is more representative of the state of our discourse than the description of the threat, says a civilian terrorism expert who used to be a government official. Is political violence on the rise in America? Yes, it is, but everything that is extreme is on the rise, whereas terrorism violence intended to bring Americans to its knees or other for the state really doesn't exist. One might not like that so many reject the current political order, but they are still trying to get their candidate elected, not pull off some coup to overthrow the government. That never happened on January 6th, and despite even a president like Donald Trump, it's not possible in America. Jagger prefers the domestic to political violence over domestic terrorism, and he reaches back into history to stress that the current state of play is maybe not quite as dire as some claim. Violence in America at alarming high levels, protesters and groups dangerous to our society, dividing the nation into armed camps. These are all descriptions. Jenkins says that they appeared more than 5 decades ago in the 1968 report of the National Commission on the Cause and Prevention of Violence. Yeah. So, this is a thing that is happening here. MAGA Republicans or people that are anti-government, etc., are being targeted, and we are now a group of people that need to be, I guess, put on a little category list. Communism is here, guys, and we have to fight our very best to fight it. Now, some people are going to say, just close your eyes and just, go along with it, go with the picture. Well, we can't, because they're trying to put everybody in one political place that they want us to be put in. They cater to what their political beliefs are or be destroyed. But it doesn't matter, because here's the thing. If you ignore this, guys, and you let this go through and you want to believe it also, guess what? That just means that more people are going to be anti-law, going to put people in jail, and then you people are going to suffer for it. Even if you cater to the right side of what you want to the FBI, what they deem, it doesn't matter. Because you're still going to be suffering for it. Your family's still going to be suffering for it. You people will not have peace. When people go and attack you, you can't defend yourselves, you'll be arrested. So, even if you try to defend yourself, even if you try to go on the side of the FBI, do not do it. Because, again, if you do not defend your country, if you do not defend what we have that is right and true in this country, you will ultimately suffer for it. Your family will suffer for it. There is no ands or buts about it. We've seen what the far left, the communists, people have done to this country, what they have been doing in blue states. And the matter of fact is, if you cater to it, you will be punished severely, because either you will end up dead because the crime will be everywhere, your wives or daughters will be raped in every way imaginable because they can't be punished for it, or they'll be released due to early bail, which we've been seeing many times on this channel what's been going on. So you have to fight back. It's hard, yes, I understand. But if we let the government do this stuff, if we let them get away, and we have to hold them down with fear, then it's over for our country, it's over for our families, it's over for everything else. We have to fight back as brothers and sisters, because it's the only way, true way. I may be harsh on women, but it's for their own betterment and their own good. You have to be harsh onto people that are making wrong decisions in their life and make sure that they're being stirred into the right direction. If they're being in the wrong direction, teach them. But of course, we have to teach them in a more abrupt way. Niceness is not going to make them change. Only brutality will. And unfortunately, we're heading to this direction to where we have to use brutality to get our point across, because if we don't, it's going to be a huge problem for our country. And I don't mean by violence. I mean by saying the obvious truth and not pulling punches on reality. By doing so, we can probably change things for the better. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Rock, subscribe, share, and as always, take care my friends.